Here we go. So, today I want to talk about something that's been kind of diluted. I don't think this is necessarily kind of a new thing. I think this is kind of a newer or more recent manifestation of it. And I'll set it up like this. When Jesus was here on the earth, he went along the shore of the Sea of Galilee and he told Peter, James, John, told them, follow me. And they did just that. They left their stuff there and they went and they followed him after that. Now, they're not the only ones that would begin following Jesus throughout his life and ministry, but they are pretty much the only ones who would remain following him throughout most of it. There's numerous instances throughout Jesus' ministry after the feeding of the 5,000 where he would say some very controversial, very difficult to wrestle with things, and the response of the people that were hearing him was to leave him there. Jesus even turning to his disciples and saying, "What, are you going to abandon me as well?" And Peter saying, "Where would we go? You have the words of life," right? Following. Nowadays, if I tell you that I'm following someone, you would infer that that means that I'm connected with them on Facebook, or that I'm subscribed to them on YouTube. I get updates from their blog. I'm on their email list. Maybe even I live stream their content, or right? You wouldn't assume that I have their personal cell phone number. You wouldn't even guess that. You would not insinuate from that this coming Saturday I'd be able to meet with them on at a Starbucks somewhere and just face to face with them for a while. You wouldn't even guess that, because that doesn't make sense. Whether that's somebody like a YouTuber, Markiplier, PewDiePie, or if that's a pastor, like Matt Chandler or Mark Batterson or Andy Stanley or any of them, or if that's some like podcast personality, some like Joe Rogan or something. Like, if I told you I was following them, your immediate deduction, and most likely deduction, would be that it was through a screen, not face to face. But Jesus in John chapter 10, he said that my flock, they know me, and they follow me. They won't follow somebody who's a hired man. They're going to run for him because he's a stranger. But me, they know my voice. And I wonder how much of when we think that we're with Jesus. I remember in the 90s there was this thing that was like, "Jesus is my homeboy," was this popular kind of thing that was around. It was controversial. And people would say, "Well, Jesus is not my homeboy, he's my Lord." And like, honestly, if I asked you, are you following Jesus? I believe the gospel is showing us, the Bible is showing us something that is indicative of a complete life change. Something along the lines of an Apostle Paul, where he hated Christianity he was its most fierce proponent, being persecuted and shipwrecked and even murdered for it. That it implies and it demands that kind of a consistent, ongoing change of morals, change of priorities, change of life direction. So if you grew up in church, or if you've just come to Christ recently, there's something like, well, what's been different since then? And if the answer is, well, nothing, I would ask you to definitely really wrestle with the idea of, have you really come to Christ, or are you just following? Are you just subscribed to Jesus Christ? Is he your Lord, or is he just another content provider for you to help fill in your otherwise unoccupied time? So that's my question. Do you hear his voice, and do you follow it? Or are you following after strangers? That's the question. Because, I mean, at the end of time, Jesus talked about that he's going to separate the sheep from the goats, right? That there are going to be people at the end of time, when it all boils down, that they're going to be convinced that they're God's superstars, doing amazing things, having massive influence, and yet Jesus is going to tell them, depart from me, because I never knew you. I never knew you. Is that you? Are you in that group that you think that because of things that you've done, or because of content providers you're subscribed to, or because of the size of the church that you attend, or your level of activity in that building, do you think that that is what is going to get you past the pearly gates at the end of time? Just wrestle with the question. Even if you end up coming to the conclusion, no, that's not it, it's that I do have a personal relationship with Christ, your relationship with Christ will be strengthened by you asking that question. But if it turns out, no, you don't have a relationship with him, you don't know his voice, and you aren't following him, then that'll put you in a valley of decision for it. In or out.